This Rough Country Hitch Mount Black Series LED light kit in spot beam is for those of you with a 1987 all the way up through the most current model year Wrangler that are looking for a very easy way to add a set of reverse lights or auxiliary lights onto the back of your Jeep without the need to swap out the bumper for one that has lights integrated into it or drill a bunch of holes in your Jeep. This is going to allow you to clamp around that 2-inch receiver that you already have and mount lights on that very, very simply. This is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation. Pretty easy to get done, but there's going to be a little bit of wiring as you would expect with lighting, but we are going to show you how to get it done. Again, pretty straightforward, pretty easy because of the wiring harnesses that are included in this kit. Now, the first and most important thing to note about this kit is just because you have a 2-inch receiver does not mean that this kit is going to work for you. You have to make sure you have the clearance. So you need 1 inch of clearance on top of your 2-inch receiver and 3/4 inches of clearance from the receiver to anything that it might be running into, like maybe your chain plates. If you don't have that much clearance, you're not going to be able to get this mounted up. So take some measurements, take a look, and make sure that this is going to work for you. But if you do have the room, again, this is a really clean and easy way of adding some reverse lights without drilling any holes. The kit is going to come with not only this bracket right here, that's going to be what clamps around your 2-inch receiver, but it has a couple of wings here with holes drilled in them to allow you to mount the 2 lights that come with the kit. And these are Rough Country's Black Series lights, and as you can see, the background behind the LEDs themselves, they are black, just a little bit more of a stealthy look, a little bit less noticeable when you're looking at the back of the Jeep. These are going to be 6 LED lights. You're going to have plenty of brightness from them, and as I said before, these are a spot pattern light. Now, in my personal preference, I like to see more of a diffused light, more of a spread pattern for a reverse light, but as long as you aim these properly, they're going to get the job done for you. These are also going to come with a couple of snap-on covers for those lights. Now, for a reverse light, you're not really going to be using them, but they do come in the kit just in case you decide to pop them on. Over here, you're going to have a couple of wiring harnesses that are really just extension harnesses. This harness is going to plug into your light and just give you the same weatherproof connector that's on the end of the light, just further down range. And you have 2 of these harnesses, 1 for each of your lights. Then you have this harness over here that's going to have 2 weatherproof connectors on it. Those are going to plug into your extension harnesses. And this harness has all of the other stuff that you need to make this work. So it's going to have your fuse, it's going to have your relay, and it's also going to have your switch. It also has a couple of ring terminals on it, some pre-terminated ends that are going to pick up power at your battery. So again, it really is going to give you everything you're going to need to get this kit running. Now, if you install it exactly as it comes in the box, you have a button on the dash that is pretty convenient. Push the button, you have your reverse lights come on, but if you are comfortable with automotive wiring, you could very easily make this a system that will come on automatically when you shift the Jeep into reverse. But again, that's not going to be included in the instructions. You'll have to get a little bit creative there. So for a kit like this that comes with not only the lights, but the wiring harnesses and the mount, I think the price tag that's associated with it is pretty fair. This comes in at right around $105. And again, for everything you're getting, I think that's going to be a pretty good deal. So 2 out of 3 wrenches because of the little bit of wiring that's involved here, but let's show you how to do it.
Tools required for this installation are going to be a 3/8 drive with a 10mm, a 13mm. This is a 5mm Allen keyed socket. These Allen keys were supplied by Rough Country. Some consumables are going to be these zip ties, and I recommend using some side cutters to get rid of those tail ends. Optional is an impact. All right guys, so to start off our Rough Country hitch mounted LED bracket, I wanted to show you our hitch. This is not a factory hitch. Your factory hitch will stick out about a ½ inch. And if you look at our bracket here, we're working with 1 inch. So you'll see there we have plenty of room. We do sell on ExtremeTerrain.com some extenders for this factory hitch. So I'd recommend picking up one of those before you get this. But to start off our install, I'm gonna put this on the bottom. And then the top is gonna go, you can see how it's stepped, and that's going to go right over that receiver. Then I'm gonna start my 5mm Allen key hardware. And I'm gonna tighten this up as evenly as possible. All right, now we're gonna bring in our Rough Country light pods. We're just gonna put our hardware right through there. And then we're going to top it off with a washer, lock washer, and nut. This is going to be a 13mm nut. Just get our flat washer in there. Go ahead and tighten that up with a 13mm socket. And I'm going to position it right around there, but we'll tighten down those Allen keys on the side in just a little bit. And our next light pod going on. All right, so now we're gonna start our wiring process. And Rough Country actually did include a very nice and long wiring harness. So I'm just gonna start routing my wires. I'm gonna go through these two holes where my safety chains would go if I were towing, but I don't tow much of this Jeep. So we're gonna start plugging in our Deutsch connectors here. And you should hear that audible click to let you know that they are seated properly. And then I'm going to start routing it up and down my frame. So from this point, I'm going to get a zip tie and go up and through my frame here, sandwich it in between the frame and the bumper, just like that. And I'm gonna bring my wires up and tighten what I got here. Get that nice end out of the way. Next, I'm going to get another zip tie and zip tie it just like that. Again, away from my muffler or anything that's hot. And let me get one more just to make sure that that is nice and out of the way. All right, so running these wires more forward, we're going to go above here, above our parking brake cables, our fuel filler neck, and this cross member for our, that's right next to our fuel tank here. Make sure it's nice and away from the muffler. This is your vent for your axle tube here. Let's go ahead and zip tie it to here. All right, so let's go ahead and get these connectors above one more of these cross members. We're just gonna leave these here dangling, and then we're gonna start our wiring in the front and then meet right here in the middle. All right, now we're gonna wire up the forward portion of our wiring harness, and in my hand you can see I have a relay, a fuse, 2 terminals, and then this connection is for your switch. So we're just gonna leave this switch off to the side right now, but I'm going to make sure that I have enough slack up here for my relay box and my terminals. I'm not gonna connect these up right now because I wanna make sure I connect those lights first. So let's just put these off to the side here. My relay's chilling right here next to my fuse panel. And then my switch is going to go all the way around and then through a hole in our firewall. Now let's get our Deutsch connectors. Now the best place I've found to route any wiring in your engine compartment is going to be in the corners over here. So let me just start snaking these through, and they're gonna pop out right below our grill. And then we can run these down our frame rail and meet up with the Deutsch connectors right in the middle. Just like that, and we can tuck these wires next to our air box, nice and clean. All right, let's go find those wires and connect them in the middle. So as you can see, we've got our Deutsch connector coming through this, my favorite spot in the engine compartment. And right now we're going to run these behind our shock and spring towers. And we're gonna hopefully pop them out, yep, right there behind our brake line. All right, so now we're gonna add a zip tie to this wiring harness right here. You can see this loom is protected by a little bit of a heat shield because you have a catalytic converter and exhaust right there. So we're gonna put it on the outside, put a zip tie through and tighten that up. Now let's run these the rest of the way. I'm gonna go through the body here and meet you on the other side of the frame. All right, let's go ahead and continue the wiring run of our Deutsch connectors from the front to the middle. Now I'm going right above our fuel tank next to the transfer case, and then right over this cross member. And as you can see, there are our Deutsch connectors from the back. Now I'm just gonna take another couple of zip ties and make sure that this is nice and out of the way. All right, let's go ahead and connect our Deutsch connectors. Again, you're gonna wanna hear that click to make sure that those terminals are touching. and 2. And I'm just going to tuck this right in that gas tank skid plate and make sure that it is zip tied and tight and out of the way. All right, so one of our last steps is to trim our ends of our zip ties. And if you need to add any at this point, just go through your whole wiring route and make sure everything is nice and clean and away from any moving parts or anything that's hot. So I'm just gonna go up the line and trim all these ends off and then go into the engine bay and finish our wiring. All right, so now we're gonna connect our positive and negative side up to our battery, starting with the positive. So the cool thing about Jeep batteries are that they have these little auxiliary posts that we can attach auxiliary lights to or any accessories that we may be adding to our Jeep. So let's tighten that up. And we're going to attach our ground. All right, cool. And then we can attach our switch to this electrical connection right here and test our light out. So we do have power available to that switch. And looking back, the lights are now on. All right, so the last step is to run your switch through the firewall. So there is no blank spot right here. On the JKs, the best spot to run it is right through the cowl underneath here. And you can see that foam right in there. If you grab a long screwdriver and make a hole into that, you can now fit your switch through it. However, we have to return this vehicle to stock. We're not going to be poking into that. So we're just going to connect our switch right underneath the hood here for demonstration purposes and just turn it on. So that's going to wrap up my install of the Rough Country hitch-mounted LED light kit for your Jeep Wrangler. And for all things Wrangler, keep it here at ExtremeTerrain.com.